our September 28th PZM Essentials webinar. My name is Dan Ba, and I am one of the Precision Business Planning Specialists here at AgSolver. And in today's webinar, we're going to be going over our in-season satellite imagery within Profit Zone Manager. And really what we're going to do, we're going to create a 2016 planning scenario using 2016 satellite imagery back from August. I believe August 18th is the satellite imagery date. And we're going to create a scenario off of that and use that satellite aerial imagery as our yield source for soybeans on a field. And then we're going to also upload our 2016 as applied planting data for that specific field, and then set the costs associated to that seed cost along with the rest of our 2016 crop budget. And then we'll really follow up with any questions that anyone might have within Profit Zone Manager. And I do want to mention before we begin that we are in Q&A mode. So if you do have any questions, please type your question in the chat box below. You see my contact information there where you have my email and then also cell phone number as well. Well, we'll hop into Profit Zone Manager now. Minimize the chat box screen. And so here's a field that my family operates. This is one of the cash rented fields that we picked up in 2015. So we only have 1 year's worth of yield data on this field, and that's 2015. This year it's in soybeans, 15 it was in corn. Pretty profitable field, highly productive. But what we're going to do, we're going to create a scenario using satellite aerial imagery. So we'll click on the green Create Scenario button right underneath the James field name. And so we'll name our scenario name 2016 soybean production. Scenario type, we will actually turn this into a actual scenario type. And then once the yield data for this field, then we will update our yield source from satellite-based yield to yield data or yield monitor yield data. Crop, this field is in soybeans. And then we have our as applied planting data where we have AsGrow 2232s and AsGrow 2136s. So we'll select both of those for our as applied data. Next, we will select our satellite based imagery. And we have an imagery date from August 16th, 2016. So we're going to use that. And then we have an upper and lower yield bound. And what I'm going to do is adjust our lower yield bound to 35 bushels. And what that is representing that in the lowest area of the fields, it might yield 35 bushels. And then on the max end, and we started soybeans, and we're going to bump that number up to 75. Whereas the highest area in the field is going to yield 75 bushel soybeans. So after we select our yield source and then edit our minimum and maximum yield bounds, we'll go ahead and click Save. And then next, our budget populates. And what I'm going to do is just select a state average corn budget just to begin. So we'll select the Iowa herbicide tolerant soybeans following corn as our starting point. What we have to do is select a commodity price, and for commodity price we're going to use 960 soybeans. This Iowa state average equipment cost, and we're going to adjust this down to $45. For our seed cost actually gets turned over to cost of per thousands of seeds. When we do that, that cost per thousand is actually 53 cents per thousandth of seeds, and that's for both of them. So once we select our as applied cost, we'll come down. Fertilizer, that's about right. Herbicide, insecticide, that cost is more close to $60. Insurance at 18. Interest, that's about right. Hauling cost, handling cost, land cost. Actually, that's at 275 now. Labor, overhead, home, personal, custom hire, and other. Then we'll go ahead and click save. So now the system is populating and crunching and piecing all of that data into a scenario using satellite aerial imagery. And here's our profit map based off of the satellite imagery along with our as applied data incorporated into it. And so you can see there's variability within the field. And I also mentioned that the satellite imagery is at 30-meter resolution. So whereas the yield data, we can get it down to 3-meter or 9-meter resolution. So this shows areas within the field where we might have a water management problem. And so in the corner over here, this is where we have a soybean test plot. So you can see how that variability affects us within the field. Um, just looking at this based off of the weather events that we've had, this along the road, it's probably due to water management within the field. So then going down, we'll review, and the map that we are looking at is actually a profitability map, and we have our legend to the right-hand side here. So we have the acreage of the field, 67 acres with an expected average yield of 59 or 60 bushels per acre, which is about right. Our profit projection, return on investment, production efficiency, which is a measurement of how efficient are we with our working capital, or to be more specific, how efficient are we at taking $1,000 and turning that into a commodity. So we're able to produce about 104 bushels per $1,000 spent. Acreage opportunity ratio is 50%. A working capital opportunity, that's dollars spent on this field where we're either breaking even or losing money on. And then we have our break-even commodity price. This is really helpful to determine where do we need to start marketing our grain at. And then we have total field expenses, total field revenue, total field profit on this field at $82. And then we have a histogram representing the acreage to profit per acre within this field. We have an inputs pie chart, and you can see majority, about 50% of our cost is going to land. And then fertilizer and protection and seed, it's almost a tie. It's a nice visual. And we have our soils data layer and then crop data layer. So then we can come up here and view the different types of maps within Profit Zone Manager, from a profit map to a yield map, projected yield map, to see where some more productive areas are within the field. This could be a soil type issue right in through here. Return on investment map layer, break even, yield increase, our commodity price map at the subfield level, break even expense decrease map, our production efficiency map layer, and then finally our soils overview map layer. So now I'm going to open up and see if anyone has any questions on how we created that 2016 planning scenario or actual scenario with our yield data within Profit Zone Manager, or excuse me, our as applied planting data within Profit Zone Manager using 2016 satellite aerial imagery. So, and what we're excited about is seeing how close the yield data from the yield monitor represents the yield for within the field. So, and within Prospector, another tool by AgSolver, yield by satellite compared to a yield monitor is about anywhere from 90 to 93% accurate of what actually happened within the field. And so on this field, I did just the yield just from what we're seeing based off of those varieties um, on some of the fields that we have started harvesting soybeans on. So, and while we wait for questions, I do want to invite you to our next webinar at 11 o'clock, and that's our intermediate planning webinar where we're going to be looking at various mapping fields. And so what we're wanting to do on this field is add that data layer to help us create better zones and better precision business plans with that various technology. So we're going to be looking at how we can amortize that cost out over 2 years, and then how we can see that pays and when we create either variable rate lime scripts, fertilizer scripts, or planting scripts compared to a 6-acre grid of this field. And so last year we did take 6-acre grids on this field, and we want to see how that compares to the Veris mapping. So that's the webinar at 11 o'clock. I also want to mention that this webinar will be posted onto our YouTube page, AgSolver YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch this webinar. And if there's any scenarios that you want to sit down, create one, you can reach out to me. We can schedule a webinar and we can create those scenarios on your specific fields within your specific enterprise. So I want to thank everyone for joining our webinar this morning. And if you're out in the fields, be safe and have a good harvest. Thanks.